This story was sent in by Jamie. About a month ago, I was on Craigslist looking for furniture for my new apartment. Living on a tight budget, I was determined to find a good deal. After a few hours of scrolling, I came across an ad for a couch that looked absolutely perfect, modern, clean, and just $100. It seemed too good to be true. The seller's email, however, was a little unsettling. Mexican Poppy 666 at hotmail.com. Something about it gave me pause, but the deal was too tempting, so I sent an email. Within minutes, I got a reply. The seller agreed to my offer and asked for my address. That set off some alarm bells. I didn't want a stranger knowing where I lived. I responded, suggesting I pick it up instead. Oddly, he kept insisting he could deliver it. When I stopped responding, he sent me his address instead, claiming he'd hold it for me. The house was in a quiet part of town. When I pulled up, the place looked different from the picture on the listing. The yard was overgrown, and the windows were covered with what looked like newspaper. A middle-aged man wearing a baseball cap answered the door, grinning in a way that immediately made me uncomfortable. I introduced myself and stepped into the living room, which smelled faintly of mildew. The couch wasn't in great shape. There were stains and tears all over it. He must have noticed my disappointment because he immediately offered to drop the price to $50. I declined politely and said I wasn't interested anymore. As I turned to leave, he grabbed my shoulder. His voice was low as he said, "You can have it for free if you just spend some time with me." Disgusted, I yanked my shoulder away and practically ran out of the house. That night, I couldn't shake the encounter. Around midnight, as I sat watching TV, I heard footsteps on my porch. My heart raced. Muting the TV, I strained to hear. Someone was fiddling with the doorknob. I crept to the peephole, but no one was there. Then I heard the gate to my backyard creak open. I dialed 911, whispering my address. Moments later, I shouted out, "The police are on their way." The noise stopped and whoever it was fled. When the officers arrived, I told them about the Craigslist seller. They searched the area but didn't find anyone. To this day, I can't prove it was him, but I know in my gut it was. Now, I can't even think about Craigslist without getting a knot in my stomach. This story was sent in by Robert. I was looking for a reliable car for my son's 18th birthday. After scouring websites like Cars.com and eBay Motors, I wasn't finding anything affordable. That's when I turned to Craigslist and found a listing that caught my eye. A 2003 Toyota Camry with only 67,000 miles for $3,500. It seemed like a steal. The seller, Bob, sounded friendly when I called him to arrange a meeting. He gave me his address, and I told him I'd bring the cash to seal the deal. When I arrived at his property, something felt off. It was a small house, isolated from neighbors, with an overgrown yard. The garage door was open, revealing random car parts strewn everywhere, but no sign of the Camry. Confused, I checked the address again. This was definitely the place. After knocking on the front door for a few minutes with no answer, I called Bob's number. I heard a faint ringtone coming from inside the house. Still, no one came to the door. Feeling uneasy, I decided to peek through the window. Inside, the house was dimly lit, and the furniture looked old and dusty. Then, in the back corner of the room, I saw a figure. At first, I thought it was Bob. I knocked on the window to get his attention, but he didn't move. That's when I realized it wasn't a person. It was a taxidermied human figure, posed unnaturally. My blood ran cold. I hurried back to my car, glancing back at the house one last time. The window blinds I had looked through were now slightly open, and I could feel eyes on me. I sped away, shaking. I never reported the incident, but I can't help but wonder what would have happened if I had stayed longer. This story was sent in by Amanda. Last year, I wanted to buy an iPhone 5 and found a listing on Craigslist for just $200. The seller said it was in mint condition and needed to sell quickly because he was upgrading. Not knowing much about phones, I brought my tech-savvy younger brother to test it out. We met in a Dunkin' Donuts parking lot at 10 p.m. Two men stepped out of a black Honda Civic. The seller was big and intimidating, but he seemed polite enough. He handed over the phone, which looked perfect. My brother tested it with my SIM card and said everything checked out. Then the seller raised the price to $250. I lied, saying I only had $200 on me, even though I had brought extra cash. Reluctantly, he agreed and handed over the phone. As they left, I noticed their car lingered in the parking lot, but I figured they were just hanging out. On the drive home, I realized they were following us. I took a few random turns, but they stayed close behind. My brother urged me to stop and confront them, but I wasn't about to take that chance. Eventually, I sped through a red light and they didn't follow. Relieved, we got home and locked the doors. Around 2 a.m., I heard car doors slam outside. Looking out, I saw the same black Honda Civic parked on the street. My heart sank. I woke my dad, who grabbed a bat and stood by the door as the men knocked. They threatened to break in if we didn't hand over more money. Our neighbor, a cop, lived 2 houses down. I called him, and within minutes, he arrived with his service weapon drawn. The men tried to flee but were caught. That night could have ended much worse, and I learned to never underestimate the dangers of a simple Craigslist deal. Think this was scary? Wait till you hear what's coming next. Hit that follow button and share your own creepy encounters in the comments. Your story could be featured in our next video. Don't miss out. The next nightmare might just be yours.